And then, okay, so we are being recorded. I am sharing my screen and then we will start. Okay, good morning. Welcome to lecture 9 and we are not going to do anything new today. So today we will spend some time in trying to understand how to use the concepts that we have discussed till now in solving some problems that can be asked in the minor and or major. I mean, obviously not the same problems will be asked, but you can expect similar kinds of problem or modification of these problems. So today the whole lecture we will devote towards trying to look into some numerical problems and we'll look into how do we approach those problems, how do we attack those problems, and how to solve those problems. So without any delay, let us start then. So the first problem is actually a problem taken directly from the homework that I provided you, and I have actually discussed it very briefly while I think in lecture 4, or I mean when talking about equilibrium, I mean stress equilibrium. Okay. So but today let us look into it in more details, little bit more details, and then we'll move into some other problems. So the problem states that the stress field within an elastic structural member is expressed as follows. So these are the stress fields, and the objective is to determine the body force. So whenever someone is asking you to determine the body force, the first thing that should come to your mind is the stress equilibrium equation. And if you remember, the stress equilibrium equation looks like del sigma xx del x plus del tau xy del y plus del tau xz del z plus bx is equal to 0. And this is my equation 1, which is representing the equilibrium in the x direction. So this is, we obtained this earlier by using summation fx is equal to 0. Similarly, we have del tau yx del x plus del sigma yy del y plus del sigma not sigma del tau yz del z plus by, and that is again equal to 0. This is my equation 2 obtained by equating fy to be equal to 0. And lastly, I have the third one, del tau zx del x del tau zy del y del tau not tau sigma zz del z plus bz is equal to 0. This is my equation 3, and this is obtained by summation fz is equal to 0. So now we can see that in these equations there is bx, by, and bz, and that is what we want to compute. But before proceeding, you remember that we also proved from the rotational equilibrium that this del tau yx, I can write it as del tau xy. This is okay. This I will write as del tau xz, and this as del tau yz. Why am I doing it? Because look at the expression. Uh, Certainly there is no expression for zx, and there is only expression for xz. So that's why I'm doing this. And this is coming from the rotational equilibrium. So you're trying to use both the equilibriums. So now these are the terms that we need to compute. So let us try to compute them. So first is del sigma xx del x, which is equal to, so you are going to take derivative with respect to x. So y is a constant in that case. So it will be minus 3x square. And then tau xy, you are going to take derivative with respect to y. So z is a constant, so it will be 4y. Is equal to 4y. And then there is del tau xz. You are going to take derivative with respect to z. So the second term is not a function of z. That will be 0 because that will be treated as a constant. And the first term will be 3x z square. So del tau xz del z is equal to 3x z square, right? Yes. So now I have all the components of first equation. So I will substitute them here. So substituting in equation 1, we obtain. So first this one minus 3x square plus 4y plus 3x z square plus bx is equal to 0. And therefore my bx is equal to 3x square minus 4y minus 3x z square. And this is my answer. Now, if I give you a certain value of x, y, and z, you will be able to compute what is bx at that point. You just will substitute the value of x, y, and z, and that will give you the value of bx at a given coordinate, provided I provide you that coordinate value. Now, I'm not going to solve for by and bz. The idea is not to solve the whole problem, but to give you idea how to tackle these problems. So now you know how to tackle this one, for example, or this one. And anyways, if I'm not wrong, this is one of your homework problem, which you have to submit by 31st midnight or 11:59. So you are anyways going to do the total problem. And when you are solving the problem, write each and every step. Don't assume that I will know what if you are doing some step jump. I mean, marks may be deducted. So be careful there. Okay, so let us move to some more problem. So this is another problem, and this problem is related to stress transformation. So let me define the problem first. I have not defined the problem actually. So what we have been given is sigma and this coordinate system and two coordinate system. So this sigma is given in the xy and xyz coordinate. Okay. Okay. And problem to be solved. So to be solved is find sigma prime uh, uh, in x prime, y prime, z prime coordinate. So this is a problem related to stress transformation, which we have studied already. So can any of you or one of you tell me how sigma transpose is related to sigma?
Sir, it is equal to R transpose into sigma into R.
Thank you. Yes, it is R transpose sigma into R. So now I need to find out this R, and remember R is known as a rotational tensor. So R is known as rotational tensor. Okay. Okay, so from this diagram, I want to find out what is my R. So let us try to see if we can find out what my R is. So to find out R, let me draw it again. So this is something like this. And then what you are doing is you are rotating it in the anti-clockwise direction, but about the z axis. So this is your x prime, this is your y prime, this is your x, this is your y, this is your z, and this is also your z prime. So what we are interested in is to compute the angles between them, right? So let us see. So I have x, y, z, and then I have x prime, y prime, z prime. And we'll try to find out these angles. So first is the angle between x prime and x. So this is my angle, and this is in the clockwise direction, and this is equal to 45 degree, which is given here. And therefore, this x prime will be cos of 45, which is 1 by root 2. So next is the angle between x and y prime, or if I go here, x prime and y. So let us see, here it is. So next is the angle between x prime and y. So that angle is basically this one, right? So this total angle would have been 360 degree from x prime to x prime. I know this angle is 45 degree because x and y are at 90-degree angle. So this angle is cos of 2 pi minus pi by 4, which is equal to cos of pi by 4, which is equal to 1 by root 2. So the angle between x prime and y is also 1 by root 2. Thirdly, what is the angle between x prime and z? So remember, this rotation we have done given here is about, the rotation is given about the z axis. We have rotated the coordinate axis about z, and that is how we have obtained x prime from x and y prime from y. And in the original coordinate, and this is 3D we are talking about, z was at a 90-degree angle with x, and since you are rotating about z, the angle is still 90 degree. So, and cos of 90 is equal to 0. Okay. So this is one column that I have drawn. So let us try to draw a second column. Okay, so let me redraw it. So because it is little bit chaotic now. So for clarity purpose, I am redrawing it. This is my x prime. This is my y prime. So x prime, y prime, x, y, z, comma, z prime. So now I want to find the angle between y prime and x. So the angle between y prime and x is, let me change the color, is this one. So this is equal to, this is 90 plus 45. So cos of pi by 2 plus pi by 4. So this is cos in the second quadrant, which I know is negative. So which is equal to minus cos pi by 4, which is equal to minus 1 by root 2. Okay. Next is next is uh, next is, let us say, the angle between y prime and y, which is simple 45 degree. So 1 by root 2, and the last one is 0. Same logic as before. Coming to z prime, so z prime is already at an angle of 90 degree with both of them. So 0, 0. And z prime and z angle is 0 degree. So cos of 0 is equal to 1. So this is my r. This is my r. the rotational tensor. Now remember one thing here, that when you write the R, x prime, y prime, z prime is in here. If you write x prime, y prime, z prime here, then that will be R transpose. So be careful with that how R is defined, because this is no longer a symmetric matrix. As you can see, the sign is opposite. This is an axisymmetric antisymmetric matrix. So since this is an antisymmetric matrix, you have to be careful about how you define R. And R is defined where the original coordinate axis is in the row and the new coordinate axis is in the columns. If you don't do it, you will get a wrong answer. So you have to be careful with it. So this is my R matrix. And what we want to do is, as was told, that I want to compute sigma prime, and that can be computed as R transpose sigma R, which is equal to, I'm first taking a transpose. So the transpose will look like this: 0 minus 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 0, 0, 0, 1. And then there is sigma. Sigma is what? 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, right? Yeah. So 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 0, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 0. And then 0, 0, 1. So, and then you have your R, which is equal to this one. So I'm not writing it again, but I mean, you know, this will come here as in transpose form. This will come here in transpose form. So you know that. So now we need to do this calculation. And what I will do is, yeah, go ahead.
So can you please explain the angle between x prime and z?
Right. Right. So let us make a plane first. So let me go here. So you have to think of in a 3D. Okay. So let's say, so this is my x, this is my y. And then what is coming outside of this plane? So this is coming outside of this plane. Okay. This is z. So you have to think that this is coming outside. Now, what you are doing is you are rotating this plane about this z. So the rotated plane will be what? Something like this, but it will be in the same plane. And z is still coming out of your plane. So you can think of it like that. You take your hand and you put a finger on your hand and you rotate your hand. No matter how you are rotating your hand, as long as you are rotating about the z axis, it will always be at a 90-degree angle, no matter what line you draw on that plane.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Okay.
Thank
So this is a 3D. Think from a 3D point of view. Okay. So now this calculation has to be done, right? So let us see. So I should have MATLAB opened. So I will do the calculation in MATLAB. So that will also give you some idea that how to use MATLAB. You will need it when I start giving out the assignments. So let us see. So first, let us define sigma 1, which is my 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 0, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 0, 0, 0, 1. So let's see. So 1 by square root of 2, 1 by square root of 2, 0. And then I can copy it actually. And finally 0, 0, comma 1. So one quick note here. So whenever there is something which is in the next row, I'm using semicolon. And for the same row, I'm using column, so comma. So comma means this is one column, second column, third column. As soon as you give semicolon, that moves to the second row. So okay, let me not do it here. Let me do it directly here actually, or let me print it. Okay, let it be here. I will show it to you. So this is sigma 1. I need my rotational tensor, which is equal to. So this is my rotational tensor, 1 by root 2 minus 1 by root 2, 0. So I can copy this one, and I will have to put the minus signs properly. So I think this one is the negative one, if I'm not wrong, and everything else is same. And if you give a semicolon, this will not be printed. And if you don't give a semicolon, this will be printed. Let us print it so that you know. So sigma prime is equal to R. This is transpose sign. Sigma 1 times times R. Okay. So this is your thing. Let me save it on my desktop, let's say. And let's call it example 1. Okay. So now I'm running it. I have to change the folder. And this is your answer. So you see sigma 1 was this one. 1 by 0.7071 is 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2. This is my R. This was minus 1 by root 2. So that is there. And sigma prime, you are getting this one. So let me just write down sigma prime. So we are getting after calculation sigma prime to be equal to 1.4041 0 0, if I'm not wrong, 0 0 0 0 0 1. Now we know that this is nothing but equal to square root of 2, right? Square root of 2 is 1.4041 or 4142 actually. Anyways, so this is actually squared by root 2. So what you have got is this one. This is your answer. So now this is a very special case. You will not find this kind of matrix representation of stress in a generic form. So can you tell me or give me your observations on this one? There are few observations I can see. So let us, what you can observe here, I would like to hear from you. So please, I mean, tell me. So what is the first observation that you can look into here?
So there is only normal stresses, no shear stresses.
Which means
all the
this is a right. Which means this is a principal stresses, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is a correct observation. What else?
And moreover, there is no normal stress between two planes that are along y-axis.
Right. So that means you remember each column
Plane
represent a
stress.
plane. Plane stress is we are not going there. That will come later. But what we can see here is that so when you look into this, you remember that each of the columns in the stress matrix represent a plane. So these are representing the stresses acting on y plane. So for example, if I draw the cube on this plane, which is my y plane, there is nothing acting. So I can write that y plane is traction free, which means this is a stress free plane. So if I ask you some question and use this terminology stress free plane, that means on that plane there should be nothing acting. Okay, so this is another observation, and obviously I took this problem in such a way that these observations come, otherwise this would have not been there. So let me check the time once, how much time I have left. Oh, I have enough time. I've not even used half an hour. So let us see. Okay, so now before we proceed, let us try to go into little bit theory on based on this example. So little bit theory, which I will not cover otherwise. So this is a good opportunity to cover it. So we know that sigma prime is equal to R transpose sigma R. And if I'm writing it in I have a vector V, so then okay, let me write it like this so that I know what are my tensors and what are my vectors. So if V is my vector, then it is R transpose V. So this is the same rotational tensor and this is my vector components. Now in lecture 1 or in lecture 2, I don't remember, we talked about that if V is there, we can write it as summation I vi ei is equal to 1 to 3. And if I write it in some other coordinate axis, that will be j equal to 1 to 3 vj hat ej ej hat, right? So this transformation is actually, if I have to write it in matrix form, this is actually giving me vj1 hat. Should I write vj? No, let's not write it like this. This is wrong. So let me write it. I mean, it should be something like this: v1 hat, v2 hat, v3 hat. And this is equal to your rotational tensor transpose times v1, v2, v3. So this is what it is. But then one question I can ask is, how do you prove this one? Can you prove this one, that this happens? And yeah, we can prove this one. The difference is that for proving this one, we have this E hat will be equal to R times E. So you look at it, when you are transforming your basis function, then it is R. So basis function or the unit vectors get transformed using R, whereas the vector components get transformed following R transpose. So now if you do, if you substitute both of these here, what you will get is simple. You will get R transpose V and then R E. And then if you do R transpose R, that will be equal to I, which means you will ultimately from here get equal to V. And if you're doing V transpose E transpose, so that can be shown. OK, so the property I wanted to talk about is this one. So for rotational tensor, R transpose R is always equal to identity matrix. So this is the property. If you are not getting it, you should recheck your rotational tensor. For rotational tensor, R transpose R is equal to I. So can you tell me why it is I? Any idea? I mean, we have discussed it earlier, but let's see. Why it is coming to be the I? Properties
so because
of
R is a skew symmetric matrix.
No, not for every skew symmetric matrix. It may not be I. So no. It is coming because L square plus M square plus N square is equal to 1. You remember? And then L1, L2 plus M1, M2 plus N1, N2 is equal to 0. So when you substitute that, so you will get all the diagonals will become 1 and whatever is off diagonal will become 0. So it is coming from the properties of direction cosine. OK. Not this is not as a property of as a function of skew symmetric matrix. So this is why this is happening. OK, so now so now let us say so this is so now let us move to the next problem. So this was a small theory that I wanted to talk about. OK, so now let us move to another problem, which is this one. And this is so this problem I will probably not be discussing. So this I will provide you as a homework. But this is a problem I want to discuss. So the state of stress at a point is given as this one. And what I want you to compute is principal stresses and their associated directions. So direction I told you to compute it. And so yeah, so it is like that. So let us come to the principal stress first. So sigma ij is equal to 1 2 1 1 1 1 1. OK, 1 2 1 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? So this is my stress and I want to compute the principal stresses. So for computing principal stresses, I know that I have to solve my characteristics equation, not equations, plus I2 sigma minus I3 is equal to 0. So I need to compute my I1, which directly from here is trace of sigma. So I know that is equal to 3, 1 plus 1 plus 1. For I2, it is equal to determinant of 1, 2, 2, 1 plus 1, 1, 1, 1 plus 1, 1, 1, 1, right? And if you calculate it, you will find it to be minus 3. Okay. You will find it to be minus 3, 1 into 1 minus 2 into 2. So you will find it to be minus 3. Come to I3. I3 is determinant of the whole matrix. So this I'm not going to compute. This I will use MATLAB. So let me comment it out. Okay, so now I have a new sigma matrix. So I want to clear also. Clear means whatever is there will be cleared. And now my new sigma is equal to 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. So now you see, instead of giving comma, I have used space. So that also you can use. So that is another way of doing it. And then I want to compute I3, which is equal to determinant of sigma. And let us run this one. So I3 is coming out to be minus 1. I3 is coming out to be minus 1. So my equation is sigma cube plus minus 3 sigma square. And I'm writing it in this form for a very specific reason. Plus I2 is coming out to be minus 3, right? So not plus, I'll. So I2 is coming out to be minus 3 sigma. And then minus, so actually plus it will be, so plus 1 is equal to 0. So basically what I'm doing is sigma cube plus minus I1 sigma square plus I2 sigma plus minus I3. So I'm trying to write it in this form because I want to solve it using MATLAB, and that is the reason I'm doing it. So this was I3, right? I1 is equal to trace of sigma, and I2 is equal to, so I do the determinant, so I can write it actually. Determinant, so I'm not writing it, let me write it directly from here. Minus 3, right? So this is your this thing, and I want to solve. So let's say sigma p, and if I'm not wrong, this is the command minus I1, I2, minus I3. And let us see if I'm using the correct command or not. Okay, you see, I think so. There should have been 3 sigma p. Why is there? Okay. Okay, so this is now correct. So what I have done here is that, okay, let me explain it. So after giving roots, I have used 4 things, right? So why 4 things? So what we am doing is the generic fourth order generic cubic equation will look like something this. Cx plus D is equal to 0. So this A is equal to 1 for my case. So that is why the first term is 1. The second B is equal to minus I1. C is equal to I2. And D is equal to minus I3. And that is what I have given here. And this will solve your equation. And this is your solution. So what I'm getting is sigma principal stress is equal to 3.7321 minus 1 and then 0.2679. So these are my three principal stresses. I can also write it as, so this is nothing but actually, if you look into it carefully, this is 2 plus root 3. Root 3 is 1.7 and 2. So that's what it is. Minus 1. And this is 2 minus root 3. So this is what you are actually getting here. OK. And now what we want to do is, this is only 50% of the question. Remember, we have computed the principal stresses, but we need to compute the associated directions also. So I want to compute. So let's take one example. So let's say my sigma P is equal to this one. And for this, I want to compute what is my L, what is my M, and what is my N. So what will you do? Simple. So I will write this one. So this will be actual sigma. What was the actual sigma? Sorry, it should be here. 1, 2, 1, right? So this will be 1 minus sigma P, and I'm taking only this one. You have to take one at a time. 1, 2, 1, nothing here. And then 2, 1, 1, right? 2, 1, 1. So 2, 1 minus sigma P, 1, and then 1, 1, 1. 1 minus sigma P. You multiply it with LMN, which you have to find out. And that should be equal to 0. So now let us write down the three equations that I have. So sigma P is equal to 2 plus root 3. So I'm going to substitute this times L plus 2M, plus 2M plus N is equal to 0. That is my first equation. Then I have 2L plus 1 minus 2 plus root 3 M plus N is equal to 0. And the last one is L plus M plus 1 minus 2 plus root 3 N equal to 0. Now we already know that the determinant is equal to 0 of this matrix, because that's how we get the characteristic equation. So that means not all these equations are independent. So we take two equations. So let us take the first two. I mean, you can take any two. I'm taking the first two. I mean, it's your choice or it's my choice. OK. So now we have two equations, three unknown. So I need the third equation. And the third equation is L square plus M square plus N square is equal to 1. And I ask you to try and solve this. I am going to assume that you have solved it, because if you have not solved it, I'm anyways going to show you a easier way of solving it. But then you will miss the, you will not appreciate the effort that is being saved by doing this shortcut that I'm going to do. So I need to solve this one. This is my equation 1. This is my equation 2, and this is my equation 3. So I want to solve equation 1, 2, and 3. So this is what I'm going to do. We assume L equal to 1. So out of the blue, I'm going to assume L equal to 1. Now you can say that you don't like this number 1. You want to assume 5.17. You can assume it. Does not matter. But assume L to be something. I will assume it to be 1 because that will simplify my calculation. Don't assume L to be equal to 0 because then that will kill all the point. So assume some non-zero value, -1, 1, -3.89, plus 7.67, whatever you want. If you want to make your life easier, assume L to be equal to 1. So now I will substitute it into equation 1 and 2. And substitute in 1 and 2. So this will give me, so I'm substituting in 1, so that is 2m plus n is equal to 2 plus root 3 minus 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So I will get, I think, 1 by root 3. If you see any calculation mistake, let me know. And then let me come here to the second equation. And second equation, I have assumed L to be equal to 1. So what I will have is simple actually. So 2 minus 1, so minus. So if I use a minus sign, it should be 1 plus root 3 m plus n is equal to L is equal to 1, so it will be equal to minus 2. So this is now my equation 1a. This is my equation 2a. And I want to solve these two equations to find out m and n. So it's very simple. You subtract 1a from 2a, n will cancel out. So 1a minus 2a, and this will give you 2 plus 1 plus root 3 into m is equal to 2 plus 1 plus root 3. So quite clearly this will cancel out and you will end up with m is also equal to 1. We still need to find out n, and we will find out n from say 1a. So substituting m equal to 1 in equation 1a, right? Yeah, 1a. What do we have? Let us see. We want to find out n. So n is equal to 1 plus root 3 minus m is equal to 1, so minus 2, which is equal to root 3 minus 1. So finally I have L equal to 1, m equal to 1, n equal to root 3 minus 1, but L square plus m square plus n square is not equal to 1 with these values. So what I will do next is so next step is compute L square plus m square plus n square. And so L square plus m square plus n square is equal to 1 plus 1 plus a minus b whole square. So it will be 3 plus 1 minus 2 root 3, which is equal to 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 6, 6 minus 2 root 3. And you can calculate it. I'm not calculating it, but this is my L square plus m square plus n square. So now LA, we have to normalize it so that this equation, the direction cosine equation, is satisfied. So LA, okay, 1 is equal to L by square root of L square plus m square plus n square, which is equal to 1 by square root of 6 minus 2 root 3. MA is equal to also 1 by square root of 6 minus 2 root 3, and NA is equal to root 3 minus 1 by square root of 6 minus 2 root 3. And if you do LA square plus MA square plus NA square, this will obviously be equal to 1, because that's what we are enforcing here. And these are your solutions. These are your solutions. So one last note before we end today's lecture is that this square root can give you both positive and negative value. So is it correct that we are getting both positive and negative value, or is it wrong? So let us try to understand. So suppose I have a plane, okay? So what is the plane normal? The plane normal can be in this direction, or it can be in this direction also. So the square root is giving two values. One is positive and one is negative, because the one is showing you this direction, the other is showing you this direction. Does not mean that you have two planes. You still have a single plane which is here, but that is represented by two plane normal, because one can be in the positive direction, other can be in the negative direction. And that is why you are getting the square root, which will have two values. Okay, so this is your solution, and in exam, I mean, you can solve it in the conventional manner. I don't care, as long as your solution is correct, your steps are correct, I don't care. But I personally believe this is much easier to solve as compared to solving with L square plus M square plus N square directly. Again, this is, I have not solved the total problem. Remember that I have only solved it for this one. You can substitute this one and carry out the calculation, and that will give you another set of LMN. You substitute this one, carry out calculation, and that will give you another set of LMN, and that is your total solution. So total, you will get each set of L, M, and N for each principal stress, and you have three principal stresses. So I have not done it completely, and not only that, so this will be there in your home. I think this is not there in homework 1, but this will be there in homework 2. And this is a very typical problem, because in this case you will end up with two same principal stresses. And when there are two same principal stresses, you can have, if you combine them two, so there will be only one unique principal plane, and then on that, on the plane perpendicular to that, there can be infinite number of principal planes. So you remember, so it will be something like this, and then any direction on that plane will be a principal plane. And this is the scenario you will account when you solve this problem. One more comment here. So this is state of stress. If you find something like this, this is known as pure shear condition, as the normal components are 0. Maximum shear stress is not a pure shear condition, as we discussed in our previous lecture. So I will stop here. So this completes, actually we are almost done with the stress part. The only thing that is remaining is Mohr circle, which is a graphical way of solving things related to stresses. And we will discuss it in our, I mean, starting from Tuesday, that is starting our next lecture. Okay. So if there is any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, that is it for today. And we will meet on Tuesday. So is there any questions? No question. Okay. So if there is no question, we can stop now. And if any questions come to your mind when you are going through the lecture once again, feel free to contact me. Okay. So thank you and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you, sir.